Canada, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're going to get the best treatment that's available. And even if you have $1 million, sometimes the best treatment can't get rid of the cancer. When people are going through treatment, and I know Katrina talked about this too, it's really important to include kids in hospital visits. Kids' imaginations are so active that when we don't tell them what's happening and when we don't include them what's going on, they imagine it to be way worse than it is. So when it comes to going to the clinic to get chemotherapy or to visit somebody who's in the hospital overnight, bring the kids in. Always explain to them what they're going to see, what they're going to hear, what they'll smell. The more you can prepare them, the better. Um, I always try, if somebody's on an IV, or on oxygen tubing, I tell the kids that beforehand. If I can, I ask parents, you know what, if grandma's on oxygen today, but she wasn't on oxygen yesterday, maybe you can bring some oxygen tubing home and show your children, and play with it on the teddy bear so it's not so new to them when they arrive at the hospital. So the more we can prepare kids, the better. Also, a really good idea with kids is if a doctor, an oncologist, or a family physician, or a palliative care physician is willing to meet with the kids, that can be really, really helpful. Kids think doctors know everything. I had one little girl last week, and I said to her, the doctor might not have all the answers. And she was flabbergasted. She couldn't believe it. And I said, just like your parents sometimes don't have all the answers. And she said, yeah, but they're parents. They're not doctors. So this kid was sure that the doctors would have all the answers. The advantage of that is it can be really helpful for doctors to explain some of the illness to kids as well. And I know that in Ottawa, one of the hospitals, it's become standard practice now for doctors to meet with any families, or the oncologist to meet with any families in which there's kids in the family, to really talk about the illness and really make sure that the kids understand that the illness isn't their fault. One of the things that's really important to know, I call it the 3 C's of what children want to know. And so when somebody has cancer, the 3 C's are, did I cause it? Can I catch it? And who is going to take care of me? So the first one we've talked about, and kids, have active imaginations. Kids often feel responsible. They're very egocentric. So they'll often feel responsible for everything that's going on in their environment. And so they often think, it might even be, I was really angry at Mom last week for making me do my homework, and this week she's really sick with cancer in the hospital, and maybe that was my fault because I was angry and just wanted her to go away. In terms of can I catch it, again, kids are exposed to so much contagious illness, they don't understand that cancer is different. And that's why it's really key to let kids know that you can't catch it. Who is going to take care of me, being the 3rd C? That's more if it's a parent or custodial guardian or a grandparent if they're the primary caregiver for the child. Even if a parent is sick, and even if the ovarian cancer might be curable, kids know that death is a possible outcome of cancer. Any child who's 6 years old or older in Canada and has heard of Terry Fox, they often think when they hear cancer that maybe death is a possibility. And the earlier you can discuss this possibility with kids, the better. And that doesn't mean you have to be in a situation where you know that you're going to die from the disease. Even if it's just a small possibility, kids are usually already thinking about it. So it's really good, again, to bring it up with them and just let them know, you know what, this is what the doctors think right now. If that changes, we're going to let you know. But kids want to know, well, if something were to happen and if you were to die, who is going to take care of me? Now, for parents, this is a very, very emotional question. For kids, it's a very practical question. They just want to know that you've always got a plan for them. Even kids, I mean, I always say, even when you've got two healthy parents, we should always be talking to kids about who their guardians are. So they know if anything were to happen that parents have a plan and they won't be left to fend for themselves. And this is a deep worry that kids have, that they'll be left to take care of themselves. And so I really encourage people, regardless of whether your cancer is completely curable or not, to talk to kids about this. Let them know who their guardians are and that there will always be someone to take care of them. And so those 3 C's, did I cause it? Can I catch it? And who is going to take care of me? Doctors can really help out with those. And a lot of times if kids hear from a doctor that you did not cause this, you're not going to catch it, that can help a child feel much more relaxed about this situation. Now, as Katrina mentioned, it can be really hard to talk about the dying piece. And again, kids are thinking this often even if it's not a diagnosis that will result in the person dying from it. And that's why it's an important conversation to have, even if it's a hard conversation. And I always tell families, you know what? It's absolutely okay to cry through the conversation. It's okay to be sad. It's good to model grief for kids. And so you want to let kids know that all of their feelings are okay. And as adults, it's important that we show kids, too, that sometimes we cry, sometimes we're upset, sometimes we're really mad that this is happening, too. So we don't need to feel like we have to hide our emotions from kids. I always say, you know, if you're so upset that you're wailing on the floor or something and you seem out of control, that's scary for children to see. So it's better to do that when the children aren't around. But if you're just crying or you're feeling frustrated that day, it's completely okay to say, you know what, sometimes I'm really angry that I got this cancer. It doesn't feel fair to me, so I'm sorry. I might lose my temper a bit easier. And then kids learn that it's okay that they've got days where they feel angry too. With supporting kids with all these emotions, we really want to let them know all the feelings that they have are okay. Sometimes the behavior is not okay. So sometimes what I see is kids are really, really upset and they start lashing out at the parent who has cancer or kicking the parent who has cancer. And when kids are upset about something, they often take it out on the people who are closest to them, you know? So it could be a parent, a sibling, a grandparent. And that's where we want to let kids know, you know what? Your emotion, your feeling is completely okay. You have every reason to feel angry. Your behavior is not okay. You're not allowed to kick grandma. You can punch a pillow, you know, or you can go outside and run around, or you can hit drums, but you can't kick somebody. When we're talking about death and dying with kids, that's where it's important, too, to use the right words. Often people will try to make it easier for kids by referring to passed away or passed on. Or I had a little girl last week where Dad told her, well, Mommy's coming to get Jesus today. And so the child was staked out at the bed and would not leave until she saw, or sorry, Jesus is coming to get Mommy today. And the child was staked out at the bed and would not leave until Jesus came to take her Mommy. And that's really confusing for kids. So I had to explain to her, no, Mommy's dying and will die quite soon, but you probably won't see Jesus come to get Mommy. And that's where, too, often people will say, well, you know, God loved your grandma so much, God took grandma to heaven. Well, that can make kids feel like, well, if God loves me so much, I'm going to die, or God doesn't love me, so which is why I'm still alive. So the key is really to use the right words, use the words death and dying. And I explain dying to kids as dying is when the body stops working and when the body can no longer hear or see or feel. Again, with all of these things, don't feel like you need to have the answers for kids. It's just really good to be able to wonder with kids about these things when they ask questions that you don't have the answers to. Often they'll ask what happens after death. Those are things that we can wonder about. with kids. And it's key to let kids know that even if somebody does die, that person's always going to be a part of the family. So that relationship doesn't get replaced. And all the research has shown, too, that kids really keep relationships with people who have died. And that means they keep talking to them, or they often will write in journals to them. They keep that relationship. And it's really important that we let kids know that when people in their life die, that that person's still an important part of their life and will always be a part of their family.